When I was a little girl, I always dreamed about being a veterinarian.
I wanted to be an ice skater.
Astronaut.
Teacher. When I was a little girl, I wanted to basically have a heart to help people.
Well, when I was little, I didn't really have a dream. I didn't have the best of childhood, so I never really got the opportunity to learn how to be focused and learn how to be a dreamer.
Today we are celebrating the graduation of some absolutely amazing women here at the Dayton Correctional Institute. Sinclair College offers a variety of different certificates here, including business, entrepreneurship, communication, where students can gain real-life practical skills that will help them get a job upon being released.
We started in 2012. We had 300 students. Today we have about 1,500 students. And how we got there is we saw opportunities. We saw students who wanted to do more and be more and leave here better than they came in. And so we just started exploring opportunities and educational pathways that would actually provide options for them when they get out, from culinary management to agribusiness to supply chain, viable alternatives for employment.
What we see in the court system is really just a tsunami of cases. And we recognize now that the vast majority, not all, but the vast majority of the cases that we see in the court system are drug-related. And it's either possession of drugs or trafficking in drugs or people engaging in criminal behavior to obtain money to get drugs, or just the dysfunction caused by living in a drug-infested environment. It drives the vast majority of the crime that comes through the court system.
You know, if you look at the 90s and our addiction policy was to put everybody in jail that's addicted, I don't think that has been successful or was morally right. And really, because it's affecting every family, we now recognize that, you know, opioid or any sort of addiction, just any addiction, is a disorder, and that gets people putting the human side to this issue in a way that we haven't gotten to with other controlled substances.
Our community has been devastated over the past few years by the opiate epidemic, and it's important to understand, because I think it's very much related to that our community also was devastated prior to that by the crack cocaine epidemic, and which did not get as much attention for a host of reasons, one of which is just the difference in lethality. So the opiate epidemic is different in scale and different in magnitude because so many people are dying and have died because of opiate overdoses.
Well, the opioid epidemic took over our community, and to be honest, we really should have seen it coming, because we had within our region, and I'm thinking of the tri-state region, an OxyContin epidemic. We just didn't recognize it for what it was. And so when doctors were no longer prescribing because law enforcement and others took the appropriate steps to limit access to misuse of substances, then the black market was standing in the wings ready to pick up. So we ended up with heroin being available very, very cheaply on the streets, and people were in pain physically, in pain emotionally, and the opioid epidemic just took off from there.
Well, what we see is more women coming to prison for drug-related offenses, burglary, drug dealing, or activity to support their addictions. So there has been an increase in that, of course, over the last probably 10 years. We currently have 3 female facilities as a result of that.
In many instances, prison is the logical solution to acts that have been committed as a result of opioid addiction. However, it's only the first step, and more needs to be done, not just incarceration, but there needs to be programming such as recovery services and correctional education.
You know that this person is going to engage and re-engage and re-engage and re-engage again in the criminal justice system unless we can get to that core issue, which is a substance use disorder or an addiction. And the opiate epidemic in our community changed our calculus and how we evaluate that, because we also know that that person, if they're addicted to opiates, is at risk of dying. And I mean dying now.
I lost my children. I've lost a sister. I've lost a brother, numerous cousins. I've lost a lot. But in that process, I've gained so much, because I feel like if I didn't suffer those losses in such a safe environment, that I would probably be right beside them. I know I would.
I was always angry, trying to find that high that I was trying to get to. I always felt ashamed of myself for shutting people out and for secluding myself, isolating. I felt very anxious about always just needing that feeling that I was looking for that I just never got.
My grandfather passed away a few months after my incarceration, and that was the most difficult thing I've ever dealt with in my life. I still haven't grieved. I don't think you can grieve in here. I got through it because of Sinclair. Honestly, I put everything into school because I wanted to be somebody that he could be proud of. And I'm gonna do that, no matter what it takes. This isn't the end of the road for me. The last time I seen my grandfather, I was just sentenced to 2 years in prison, and I was being led away in shackles. So I didn't want the last time he seen me to just be the end of my story.
I was constantly on the go. If I was always in my car, whether I was going to pick somebody up, I was going to, go and get drugs, I was going to try to make money, it was just back and forth, back and forth. Going home, getting high, going to bed, I wasn't working. I was pretty much taking advantage of everybody that I could. I wasn't doing anything productive with my life.
Well, it started with my little sister. I had no idea that she was so deep in addiction. And I carry a lot of that with me still today, because instead of encouraging her to go to school or get a book, I was putting drugs in her hand and teaching her how to sell drugs.
I think the hardest loss for me being incarcerated is being away from my children. It's been extremely difficult. My kids are split up into 2 different places now, and I don't get to see them very often, so that's been the hardest loss for me.
My son and his dad and my little sisters are the ones I feel like in my family that I've lost throughout this.
She overdosed in 2016. It was awful, and I was here when that happened, so I was transported, handcuffed and shackled, to a funeral home here in Dayton, and I had to see her like that, with nobody around me, no support. And I feel like that moment, I knew I was serious about wanting change. I mean, anybody can say they want change, but knowing that I helped contribute to that, and now her son doesn't have a mother, and my father's without a daughter, and I'm without my best friend. That was the time that I knew something had to give. Anything had to give.
Because of the amount of people who are overdosing and dying from overdoses, now we know we have to kick into high gear, and that's what we've been doing for at least the past year in the community. We also know that it takes the whole community to make a difference.
We have to focus on the whole person. Education is critical, and you will hear and see some of that in the things that the women will tell you. Becoming aware of information to help you make better decisions is critical. Knowing who you are is critical.
The criminal justice system needs reforms and needs to do things differently than it has traditionally done. You know, the justice system traditionally operates on a punishment-based approach. You know, you do the crime, you do the time. And for folks that are afflicted with substance use disorder or addiction, that doesn't accomplish anything. It burns a lot of community resources, but at the end of the day, you still have somebody who's afflicted with the disease. And that disease is going to drive them to make bad choices, which are going to entangle them even further in the criminal justice system. So one of the consequences of this is that the justice system really taking a hard look at itself, both within the courts and within the legislature, to say, what can we do differently here? Because doing the same thing, using that punishment-based model, just doesn't work for this population. We're not accomplishing anything from this. And so let's try to look at what does work. There are people, because of the experiences that they've had in life, because of things that they are exposed to, that are more prone to addiction and substance use disorder. And understand that and try to get to the core of what the triggers are and fix that, because if you fix it from the core, then everything else will fall in line. And unfortunately, the justice system, the traditional model, is we fix it at the end of the line, but we don't fix the core. And so we're trying to flip that. And so effective substance use treatment, along with a much more holistic approach to supporting the people that are justice involved, which involves helping them with housing, putting some guide rails around them to help them be successful in seeking advancement in education, to getting employed and having a pathway to better employment, to involving their families and their children in this effort to try to build a more functional system around them.
According to the RAND Corporation, a study was done on correctional education, and 43% of those who engage in correctional education are less likely to return to prison.
I believe education is critical, and I know it was critical for me. So I understand that if you have never been exposed to education and this is your first time being challenged to learn something different than you have lived all your life not knowing, can be hard. But I applaud the women who stick with it, get their certificates, leave here and take those certificates and apply those towards degrees. And we have had some of those success stories.
My biggest thing in life is to have my education and to teach others, you know, what I've been taught. So that's the impact that Sinclair had for me.
Sinclair has been such a powerful force in my life because they were there when I needed them the most.
Sinclair being there was kind of like a beam of light. Oh my gosh, when I signed up and I was able to go to class, just stepping into the building just felt different. It didn't feel like prison anymore. It felt like life. It felt like you were surrounded by people that says, we're going to do better. We can do this.
It's like the timing was perfect for that relationship to happen and to flourish and bringing me the resources that I needed, because there's so many people that have the desire and that hunger, but if the resources aren't there or the right people aren't in the right places, you know, not everybody can do like what Miss Janice or Miss Taylor does.
You were surrounded by now adults that were from the outside, and all the I'm not adults, authoritative adults that were from the outside, while all of them they felt different. They were kind. They wanted to call us, you know, by first name.
The education that you get from Sinclair was great, and it was powerful, but it's not just education, it was the people, because if you didn't have that relationship with the people, if they didn't make you feel good about what you were doing, because there's a lot of times when you don't want to go and you're depressed.
I felt like me. I feel like me when I was in Sinclair classes. That's the only time. As soon as I stepped out of there, you know, Gibson 92288 again. But once I stepped in there, I could be Sharika, you know, I could be smart, and I can show that, you know, I like to express myself, and I can express myself without consequence, and I could write about things, and I could learn new things, and I love learning. I could get on the computer, and it was probably the best thing. Couldn't wait to go. I was a straight A student, did all my work like way ahead of time, extra time, and it was just the best. And not to mention the good days that you get. A bonus to me. The good days was a bonus in the end, because even if I didn't get good days, I still wanted to go. I had to go, because it was another thing that got me through. It made me feel like, hey, I am me. In this place right here, I am me. So I'm going to keep coming back here.
When you're incarcerated, you are already vulnerable, and you know, you're working on trying to build up a self-esteem. So meeting people that are open and they are genuine about wanting to help you and see you succeed. Not everybody has the ability, because some people hold like perceptions, like they have a certain perception, or they have a certain resentment, or they might not be able to work with a certain population. You know, you don't know what someone's real feelings are.
Because of Cheryl and her passion, she looks at the whole person. She understands that. She gets that. So she has been instrumental in getting stories told. We had a Women in Reentry event at Sinclair Community College, where we had offenders from Dayton Correctional go there. And it was really about their stories and allowing the public to see their journey. So she understands that. So she brings to DCI that passion to allow women to tell their stories, but also for the public to understand that it's bigger than statistics. It's bigger than numbers. We're talking about individuals, their lives, their children, their families. Everybody around them has been impacted by their incarceration.
A recent study was done by Dr. Ed Latessa from the University of Cincinnati, and it said that those who engage in correctional education in combination with recovery service not only have a better outcome upon release, but also inside the institution.
Knowing that when I go home, I have tools and resources that can make sure I don't make the same mistakes. Not saying that just because you have an education doesn't mean you don't make mistakes or you won't make mistakes, but I feel like I have a more solid foundation now. So with using that foundation, I can hopefully help other people into showing them my life and what I've accomplished and giving them hope so they don't make mistakes.
I have hope for the future now. I have hope. I know that I've learned so much, and I've changed so many things about my thinking and my thinking errors in the education that I've had, because it's just not for a career, it's to change my whole paradigm and the whole way that I think about things now. So I have a lot of hope for the future, and I know that I'm going to get out and I'm going to be able to change something, help somebody.
I mean, I've done so much here. I can get out and I have a few semesters left. I'll have my associate's degree, which is something I never, I've been in college twice out there, and this is just something I never thought that I would complete. And you know, I've done IOP, and it's just, I know what I need to do. And there's been a lot of people come in through Sinclair to talk to us and things, and like my teachers, my instructors, like they're all so helpful. And it's the fact that even when I leave here, they still want to be there in my life. They still want to help me, and that gives me hope that I have those people that, you know, when I get back out there, I'm not freaking out. Like, I can go to these people like, hey, I'm out, you know, here's me, this is, you know, what do I do, you know, and they'll be there for me to help me with that. And the fact that I have an education now, you know, I feel like it opens doors for careers and things like that.
I get my hope from those experiences. Just knowing that I failed as a mother to my children, and now I have this beautiful little nephew that doesn't have a mother. So I use them babies as inspiration. I want to be, I don't feel like any cycle is unbreakable, no matter how far or how long or how in depth. I feel like every cycle can be broken, and with this cycle, it's going to start with me. So even though I've been so presently absent in my children and my niece and my nephew's lives, that I'm just going to turn it around and put all my energy into being the person that I'm supposed to be, and setting that example and providing that guidance, so that they can be the best individuals possible, and knowing that if they're not, and if they fall, that they have somebody that they can turn to help them and help them be better people.
Over 80% don't have a verified high school diploma or GED. And we know with every degree of education that it opens doors and it actually reduces recidivism. So we need prison education.
So I've taken 20 classes in 4 semesters. I've taken business classes, sociology classes, business math, English classes. One of my favorite classes was Miss Taylor's criminology. It really opened the door and opened my eyes up to learn as to why people make the choices they make. There's not just a cut and dry reason, oh, because they're a bad person. There's a lot of different reasons behind why people choose to do what they do and the circumstances surrounding that.
I am taking, I've taken social services classes, anywhere from family violence to cultural classes. I've got a couple business classes under my belt, like business marketing and small business finance, and you know, I've taken 6 semesters, so I've taken many classes in social work and business management.
I am doing social services and business with Sinclair.
I'm taking social services, so I'm taking cultural anthropology, I'm taking ethics and professionalism, customer service, I've taken sociology, family violence, social problems.
We are not saying that correctional education is the only answer, but it is an answer. And it certainly provides opportunities for these women to have hope. And that's what they need. They need hope. They need hope that there is a better tomorrow.
I understand why not everyone is in favor of education in prison. It's hard to understand why someone who's in prison would get their education paid for, while maybe an average citizen who's working hard would not get that same benefit. But here's what every citizen needs to know. It takes less than $2,000 to educate an inmate in a prison. Recidivism rates go down considerably with education. We're actually saving money, we're saving taxpayer dollars by educating so that these individuals do not come back and we have to pay $20,000 to $30,000 a year to house these individuals.
When they come into our registration, our orientation, our information session, I think they see from the get-go that they're more than just their number. They're not inmates when they come into our classrooms. Someone once told me that you can have lots of programs, but it's the people who make the difference. And we have a great staff. I mean, we have every single person from facilitators to assistants to site supervisors to instructors. They believe in what they're doing. They believe in these students. They believe that they're more than the worst thing they've ever done. And they see these students just thrive under their instruction, and they're truly speaking into their lives.
One of my favorite stories was a student who said, I never thought I could go to college. I never thought I was college material. And she got up and spoke so eloquently at this graduation. And she's going to go on, and I have no doubt, earn a bachelor's degree, earn a master's degree, and she will go on to help other people. Her goal now, after attending Sinclair Community College, is honestly to make the world a better place. That is what we are achieving here. We are taking women who never believed in themselves and turning them in to citizens who want to change society for the better.
We hope that you have appreciated the stories that we have shared of the lives of the women that have been touched by correctional education. These women have also been touched by addiction, and correctional education has given them a spark of hope. I am honored to have been a part of this process that's going on and this program that's being implemented within the correctional facilities in the state of Ohio. It's providing hope. These women are returning to society, and they are ready to be productive members. And guess what? They're not going back to prison.